So now we know how the system works, we know how the bus works, we know what kind of hardware we have, and we know how we connect to third-party systems. So next topic is the software which we have to set up the system and to control the system, also for the service. There are three types of software which we are going to mention, and in this first part I'm going just to describe what it does, but in the second part we are going to open actual softwares and see how it works. So the first one is Larnitech Application, which you can easily install from the App Store or from the Play Market. Also Windows version is available, which I show here on the training. So application is used to control the system, and application is also used to set up some parts of the system in the beginning of the setup process. So you can set up automations, you can set up schedules and scenarios inside this application. The next part is named LTSetup. LTSetup or Larnitech Setup is the connection to the Larnitech main gateway, and it gives us additional parts which we can manage in the system. Third one is actually not the software but the service. And this service is provided to the installers, to official installers of Larnitech. And it gives you some interesting things, but most important, which we use all the time, is that we can add main gateways in there using serial numbers, and we can use it for remote managing and remote servicing of the system. So we can be on site or we can be somewhere else, and if something happens and client calls us, we can connect and see what is wrong and maybe manage and edit. Now let's move to a little bit more detail, and let's begin from the LTSetup. LTSetup is very important because LTSetup is the main part of our system which builds it, even though the system can work without main gateway, but you will not be able to set up the system. So the first thing which we have inside Larnitech main gateway is LT server. This software part which you do not see, you never see it, but you always experience it because this part is the main automation part. So to be able to manage LT server, there is LTSetup, which is the user interface for LT server. So LTSetup has this structure part, and there you can manage rooms and other application elements which you can see in the application. Okay, so what you set up in the structure, you will immediately see in the Larnitech application. Then it has modules. What devices are connected to the system? So in this part you will be able to see all the devices and main settings and main status of things, like maybe also the temperature of the controller and the version of firmware. So for CAN devices and local area network devices which are connected to the system is modules part. And then we have plugins part, and plugins is used to have third-party integrations. And these integrations are made by Larnitech, by the factory developers. Normal installer cannot go and make its own plugin, but only the factory can make its own plugins. Scripts, though, are available to be edited by the normal installer. So this part is an additional programming tool which installers can use, and it is available in the simple way named Blockly, when you can make visual places for different blocks, combine them together, and it becomes the script. And coding part, where you use the coding language which looks a little bit like C, and we have documentation about this so you can learn. Okay, so scripts part is available for the installers, and plugins part is available only for the factory. And then cameras, you can add video feeds in there. And all these three parts, plugins, scripts, and cameras, are managed by licensing. So in some MetaForce versions, like MF14, there is a restriction to use these parts if not paid additionally, because MetaForce is price-wise cheaper than the normal system. The normal means main gateway plus different devices. So that is why factory decided to have some limitations inside MetaForce, which you can remove by paying a little. And the last part of the LTSetup is remotes, where you can add infrared remote controls. To add infrared remote controls, you need a DEMG device where you have the input for infrared signal, and you can learn, and after that you will be able to use these remotes. Now let's move to the application. Application is available for end users and for installers. Usually installer sets it up the way that end user cannot destroy the system. So end user usually does not have the ability to edit everything. Only installer has. But sometimes end user asks installer, please leave me editing abilities, and I would like to set up myself different scenarios and automations and everything. So installer says, okay, I can leave you. I can leave this to you. So the first thing which we see in the application is the rooms list. The list of the rooms is available if you click top left. And then once you go inside the room, you will be able to see the functions list. Functions include lighting control, blinds control, monitoring of the sensors, and climate part, and cameras part, music part, remotes part, and plans part. Then we have top right corner, where you can click and see the settings and manage notifications and connection status in there. So if you have the notification, like now on a screen, you will see it in the top right corner. Also connection status, if you don't have the connection or you use the connection through the cloud or direct Wi-Fi connection, you will see it in the top right corner. Next part is widgets. And widgets are on the main part of the screen, and you can control things or see the status of different parts of the system. The next thing which will be available is the history of the selected item. So you can long press on any widget, and after that in the bottom part of the screen you will be able to see the history of the last minute, the hour, the day, the week, the month, or the year. Where is it stored? It is stored in the main gateway, and for cloud devices it is stored in the cloud. What it is used for is that you can understand what happened with different parts of the system on different time. So when did the water leakage happen? When did the door open? And things like that. Okay, so very useful part. And this is the same application, but the different user interface, which is named Light. It is the skin, which is used for people who like the different style of the user interface, but it does absolutely the same. It looks a little bit different and works maybe a little bit different. You should try it. So rooms list will be if you click top left, and then functions list will be under it, and then you will have the settings and notifications and connection status on bottom left, and then control status widgets all over the screen, and they work the same as before, but they look a little bit different. If you want history, you will be able to see it on a separate page also by long press on the widget which you would like to see. The next thing which we have is the web panel for installers, and it is used to have this list of connected main gateways on different sites which you installed. Web panel actually in different countries is used for different things, and you sometimes you can make estimates in there and make quotations for end users, and sometimes you can send orders directly to the factory, but it is unfortunately not working in every country. The most used part is this list of systems, double clicking of which you can enter the system and remotely service it. But we will see it in the next part. And this part about the setup process for home automation means that you already connected some kind of a system and you will start setting this up. So the first thing which you need to understand is how do you use the web panel. First, how to access to the dealer panel. You will have the access after you will have the dealer agreement with Larnitech distributor in your country. Okay, so you will have the login and the password, and after that you will be able to enter. And let's do it. We have this service Larnitech.com wholesale servers list, and then we enter the login and the password, and then we press sign in, and you are entering the server list. What you can do here is you can add the server or you can buy the license. Buying the license works only in the countries where the orders part and estimates part work. So then you will need to get the serial number of your controller. If you want to add the server, you will need its serial number. There are some ways to get this serial number, but the most simple is once you have the controller connected, and I have here the one controller connected, you go to the application. You can run the application on a smartphone or you can run Windows like I do. And you should be in the same network as the controller. And then you press top right settings and you should have the connection local selected. Okay. And in here in servers list, you will be able to see its serial number. Okay, so let's add this server. Add server, and the number will be 54B5CB37. Okay, 54B5CB37. Once you add it, no one else will be able to add it to their dealer panel. So this is one-time operation, and you will need technical support if you need to remove it from one dealer panel and put it to a different dealer panel. So be careful with this. So you see, we added our server, and we see now comments section, and we can edit it. So this one is test controller for training. Okay, so I save it, and I have it here. I have last connected and when it was added. So this is it. This is the first part, how we access the dealer panel, how we get the serial number, and how we add the server. The next part is basic application setup. So when you first run your application on site where you have already connected your devices. So we will go through this first connection, then what is user mode, and then app settings, edit mode, and room setup. Okay, so this is basic part, and then there will be advanced part. So as for first connection, how we do it? Let me run this software again. So I have the software which is not connected, and for the first connection I will need to be in the same network, and I press top right, settings, and I find our server if I have the local connection enabled. So if I have a remote auto or cloud connection, it will not be available. So use local connection. And here we see our server, we select it, we press apply, and after that we will be able to control our system. We will have the list of rooms, which will have only room setup, and we will have inside this room lighting and some already added sensors, and then this part of the climate. So this is the first connection. Then let's see what is user mode, and by default you are in the user mode. In here you can just click on different widgets and they will respond, they will do something. If you control something from other devices, like from the smartphone, you will be able to see the feedback. So if you go to your iPad or maybe to panels on walls, then you will see the feedback in here. Some of the widgets, they need to be double clicked. So for example, these blinds, this is closing, then stop, then open. This is short click. But if I double click, I will see this additional window which will give me some more functions, like this one gives me percentage for the shade. Okay, 62% in here. And for dimmer, if I double click, I will see brightness. Okay. If I long press, I will see its history. So in this minute, it is on. And now it is off. So this one. On again, and so on. So I can close the history or select different time interval. This is user mode, where you can see all the things and control them. But there is also an edit mode, which we will see a little bit later. Now let's move to app settings. Top right and then settings. So what we have here? First, we have some parts in here. General, messages, what kind of messages do you want to receive or not? Or if you want to receive messages only if the current tab is active. And then you can change skins, and if you change the skin, it will change the application. Okay, so now application is different and room list is on the left, but let me go back. Settings, skin, and I turn the light off. So messages, skins, and then advanced. Let's see what we have in general. In general, we have language, and then we have the connection. The connection can be local, which means we are in the local network with the scanning. And the connection can be remote, and you will enter local server address, its IP address if you are in the local network, and remote server address if you are not home. So for this you will need an open IP address, which is not very secure, by the way. Auto means it will automatically change between local and remote. If you are in a Wi-Fi network, it will change to local. And cloud, and the cloud means you connect to the user account which is connected to your system. Here we enter end user account, not installer account. Okay, so here we have the account which is connected to our server and not our installer account. Okay, this is important. And the password which you set up when you connect this account. So this will be our end user login and password. Then messages part, you can receive different types of messages or not receive it if you don't want them. And skins part you have seen already, and advanced part. So once you go to advanced part, you will see engineering mode and expert settings, which are available only if you leave them to the end user, but you can hide them. All this advanced part you can hide from end user. And then UPnP client and UPnP playlist upload and render. This is the part for media point. And then beep if you touch it, vibrate if you touch it. Blinds tab means that we will have blind motors separately. So if I select this and save, you see I have one more function and blinds are gone from the lighting part and blinds are separate now. And then I have runtime for dim lamps and lux measuring and all off button. So lux measuring means that our light level sensors will show level in lux. So let's see it. You see 4 to 1 lux. But if it is off, it will show it in percentage from the maximum. You see illumination now in percentage. And this one for runtime for dim lamps, how fast do we want to control them? If we turn them on, how fast will they turn on or off? This part will be available in the settings of the dimmer. And then if we have all off button, every room in the lights part will have this button. So if I press now all off, it will turn everything off in this room. and do nothing else. Unfortunately, you cannot put this button to the switch. Okay, and also we have disable sleep mode if we do it for the screen on wall. And then disable screen means after this time we are going to have the black screen. And then we can scale different parts of our screen. So we can scale all, like let's make it a little bit less. You see, these things, these parts of the interface, they became smaller. Or we can scale only items. So now everything will remain the same, but items will become smaller. I press now apply. You see how small and cute they are. But this one is usually good for smartphones, because people sometimes they want a little bit bigger, or some people they want everything to be on one screen and everything should be smaller. So different people want different things, so you can scale it in the app. And then you see versions. So my application is pretty old, as you see. So Windows applications, they are not updated often. Okay, and the last part in here is this QR code. This is quite important, but I won't press it right now because it will try to connect to the camera of the computer, and I use it now to have the training. So if you press it on a phone, you will be able to scan QR codes from the app. And this is quite nice feature which was made for hotels and apartments. If you want to give your client temporary access, or maybe forever access to control the apartment, you can generate the QR code, and client then reads this QR code from the app, and without settings he will be able to connect and to control the apartment. So this one is very nice. Now let's go to the mode which should be, I think, available only to installers, which is named Edit Mode. I press top right, and inside the menu I have this Edit Mode. So once I go into it, I see that I am inside Edit Mode in here. And I see also addresses for items. So sometimes I need it. And inside Edit Mode, what you can do is you can actually do the same as usual. But if you long press on any item, you will see this menu, which will have Edit Item, History, or Move To. And the history is what you have seen. And Move To will be once you have more rooms, and we will have room setup later. And most important is Edit Item. And each item, each widget, has its own properties which you can edit. So what can we do in normal relay? I press Edit Item, and I have now 4 parts in here. General one, where you can see name and icons, and automation, where I can connect different sensors, schedules, where I can set up day-night schedules, and switch, and I will unbind the buttons which were here. Okay, so more details. In the name part, you can have the name. In the voice control, you can set it up if you want to have the voice control, and then you enter the name which you want to have in the voice control for Siri, for Google, for Alexa. And then you select the area. Area is the room, and we have now only one room available. And then you can make it favorite. Favorite is another thing which I can speak about a little bit later. And then you can select if it should be start of the line in the user interface and end of the line. And then you can select a different image. So let's select, I don't know, this different lamp, okay? Or you can go back to default. So once I save it, you see its icon changed and the name is changed. Okay, so this is edit part. What else can we edit? We can edit automation schedules and switch, and automation is something which we will see later in the advanced part. And schedule is pretty easy. So I can add in here one schedule and then one more. So I can add many schedules and then delete them if I don't need it. So I select days of the week. For example, Monday, Wednesday and Friday. And then I set up the time, like 23:55, for example. And then I select, will it happen once or will it happen every time these days? And then the action. And the most simple action is on, off. Usually this one. So it will be on at 23:55 at Monday, Wednesday and Friday. And then I add it, and I have one more. I have off at Tuesday, Thursday and Saturday at maybe 7:55. Okay, so it will be on here and off here. And once I save it, it will show me this small clock in here. This clock means that you have the schedule on this widget working. Okay, so I remove it and I go to switch part. And in the switch part, we can connect buttons and switches to the widget. So I want this lamp, this relay, to be controlled by this switch. And this switch has two buttons. So I want one button to control it. So once I press it, I see here the switch detected, switch 1. I press bind, I save it. And after that, what I have is I have the control from this button to this item. Okay, so this is how you do it. You go around your site, you press buttons, and then you attach it to different functions. Probably there will be a question, it is a very popular question, can we have the button connected to the group, like not to one light but like to 10 lights, for example, and also can we dim it? And yes we can, all this we can. For example, we have this dimmer and we can dim it, and I want to do it from this button. So I go in edit mode, edit item, and you see I am already in the switch part, though I can go change name, automation, schedules. So the switch part is the second button switch to, I bind it and I save it. So once I do this, I will be able to turn it with short press on off, and I will be able to dim it one way or another one. Okay, so this is by default. Do we have additional functions for buttons? Yes, we do. In here we are able to have the click, which can do different things. Double click, triple click, long click, and long second click. So if you need, yes, you can do it. And also you can set up the speed, how fast does it go. Okay. So this is almost everything which we had on this first part of the practice session. And we need to see also rooms setup. How can we set up rooms from this application? So let's see. We go to edit mode, and after that we go to setup part. So once we are in the setup, we will be able to edit different rooms. So the name of the room setup and the name of the place where we are is set up. So this is just a coincidence. So here in structure part, you can do adding of the rooms, like bedroom, or you can have living room and others. And then when you save it, they will be available in the list of the rooms. And then you can select your item and select move to with arrow and select to which room you would like it to be moved. Then yes, and it is moved. You see here in the living room I have chandelier. You can do it with all devices, like you want to have this temperature sensor to be moved to the living room. Yes. And the sensor now is moved and you can see it available in here. So in the normal process of setup, you just do everything you need with all names and icons, and you set up everything you need, and then you move it to rooms, to different rooms, and then the room which is named setup is being hidden. I will show you later how do you hide the setup room from LTSetup. So this is like the room where everything is being edited, and this room is not needed to the end user. So you leave everything which you don't need to set up in the setup part and then hide it from the end user. Okay, this is how we usually do it. And there are some additional places where you can go. So you can go to switches part and you see all your switches which are set up, and you see what kind of devices are under control of which switch. So switch 1 controls my chandelier, and I can unbind from here. And you can go to lights part, but it's now not available, and to modules. And we have two modules now, Metaforsa and Metaforsa Cloud we have here, and we have here CO2 sensor. Two devices connected. So you can reboot all the system if you want, or you can update the firmware with flash button. But we usually don't do it from here, we usually do it from the LTSetup. Now let's move to the different software where we can have some additional properties and settings. It is LTSetup, and you can see it through the browser when you want to connect to the controller itself, to the main gateway or Metaforsa. So the first thing is how to enter LTSetup, and the most simple way is to connect it to the dealer panel, which we already did. So right now, here is our dealer panel where we connected our controller. So what I do is I double click and it will open LTSetup. It says access key is default, so you will probably need to change it when you give the system to the end user. And here you can see the date and the serial number and how many devices are connected, and then some log messages. And then we go to general and we can change the language in here. And you can notice that we have some less languages in here than in the application, because clients, they prefer their own languages, and installers, they are usually fine with English, but if you have other, it is also good. Then time zone, you can change the time zone in here, so this is our time zone right now. And then you can connect the account, and the account is quite important because you use this account to have the remote connection to the controller, to the installation. So here you need to connect the end user account. One account, one email is one controller, is one installation. So you will not need to use the installer account in here. This should be end user account. So how do you connect this to the account? First, you will need to sign up. So you will need to have the new account. So we press here, sign up. And we enter the address on which we would like to have the account. And it says whether it's busy or not, and we enter the password which we would like to have and confirm it, and then first name and then last name, and then phone, but phone is mostly not needed, so you press sign up, and after that you will need to get an email on your box. So I hope it comes fast, but not sure. Sometimes it can come not very fast. Oh, I see it. Email confirmation. So I press here. And it is confirmed. So what I do is I can press login here, but in the future I will press login in here, right in the user interface. So I go to the login and I select the email which I just entered and the password which I just entered. I press login. And now it asks me for server secret code. And this secret code is generated when I press here, get server secret code. So I press here, I copy, and then I go to cloud account and insert here. So this makes my controller connected to my account. So if I update, I will see now that my account is this one. and I will be able to have remote access to the system using this account and the password which I set up. And I will also be able to use this account for connecting to ecosystems, like to Google, to Apple and others. So I will need this account. Then we have other things to see. We've seen the system setup and account setup. Now let's go to network settings. And in the network, you will be able to select the IP as static or DHCP. So normal static IP address should be used, because if you have different IP address every time you reboot, this is not very good for automation. Okay, and then we have modules part. Modules is the part where you can see your devices, and this one is Metaforsa, and this one is CO2 sensor. So each of them you can use to update firmwares or to edit additional things. Like if you press update firmware, you will be able to select different firmwares for devices. So usually you select the one which is release and you don't update after that. Then for every device you will be able to access hardware update, hardware setting. This is the most important button, because you use this button to edit inputs and outputs. For example, for Metaforsa, when you press it, you will be able to see all outputs and all inputs. So my Metaforsa has 10 relays, so you can see here up to 10, and then 4 dimmers, so 1 dimmer, 2 dimmer with settings, 3 dimmer and 4 dimmer. Okay, and then 24 inputs. 24. So each output and input can select its own program. So inputs can be button, inverted button, switch, contact, inverse contact, Larnitech leak detector, third-party leak detector, motion sensor, inverted motion sensor. I'm sorry. And then for outputs, we have a lot of pre-programmed presets for outputs. Lamps, inverted lamps, heating valves. Also, they can be cooling valves, but it's not in the name. Blinds, gates, one pole, two pole. One pole means one relay, two pole means two relay are used. And fan coil. So you can use these pre-programmed settings. What we do now is we change something and we see what happens in the app. So this is the app. Okay, and what we do is we have now lamp 2, 3 and 4 and 4 dimmers, but let's change one of the valves in here, this one heating valve, to the lamp back, and there's these two. So once I save it, you will see that we have more lamps in the system, and we will not have 4 radiators in here. We will have only 2 remaining. So I save it. Are you sure? Yes. Important thing is that we need to have it to do it in the setup room. If you do it in a different room, it will not save, because other rooms they are write protected. And if you move the widget to the setup, then you will be able to change it. So we have 2 more lamps and we have 2 radiators less. Okay, so this is how it works. And the same goes for the switches and buttons. So if you change button to a switch, for example, you will have it working differently, absolutely differently. So now we have this one as these 2 as buttons. So 2 buttons. One is connected somewhere. I will change them to contact and inverse contact. Not contact, maybe even leakage sensor. Okay. And these ones I will change to button back because I don't control them now, and what I have here is what I don't need. So malfunction means leak sensors not connected, but they are selected as leakage detector. So I don't need it now, so I will remove it and make it a button so I do not see them in there. And all the contacts I will make buttons, so the client would not see them. And only things which I see on this page will be now contact and third-party leakage sensor, and also sensor parts which are from the CO2 sensor. Okay, so I save it and we see what happens in the app. Okay, we have 1 sensor and 2 sensor. One is door, because contact sensor is named standardly door, and it is now open. Another one is leak. So I press the first one. You see it is closed once I press it. And when I press leak, something else will happen. This means alert, and this means that water leakage happened. Okay, and when I don't touch it, when I unpress it, it will remain like this because there was a water leakage, and you need to check it. After you checked it, you will be able to reset it. Okay, no water leakage. But if still water leakage, so I hold it like there is a water leakage right now, I will not be able to reset it because it sees that water leakage is still there. Okay? So these are some very simple settings which we can do in LTSetup. So we've seen how we enter LTSetup, the system setup and account setup, then network settings and modules, inputs, outputs, some parameters. So the last thing about basic settings is remained initial update. Initial update is something which you need to do when you connect your system. So updates are usually in here, in the system parts. But there is a small problem. The problem is that my system is MFC. MFC means Metaforsa Cloud. And Metaforsa Cloud is not having this part to update. So you will see the same things as you update in here in firmware. So after you update the firmware, it means everything is already updated. So you update these firmware if you have new versions, and that's it. That's the whole update which you need with the cloud device. And there are plugins which you can also update in here. So every plugin you can enable and you can configure, but in here no update is available because updates are in the firmware of the cloud device. Okay, so in the normal device like DMG or Metaforcer MF14, you will have it as update part in the system. But in here you will just update the firmware.